Ever since I was a child, Five Nights at Freddy's 4 has terrified me the most. And I'm not saying this judging the FNAF franchise only, but from my entire life. It has scared me so much that I couldn't get myself to play the game until just a few years back. But the weirdest thing is that the game was still frightening. Which should be genuinely odd, especially for someone that has played the game for a couple of times before. But one thing that I have noticed is that I was more scared the whole time actually playing the game, rather than actually getting jump scared. And today, I want to discuss the horror that is behind Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Five Nights at Freddy's 4 has taken an incredibly sharp turn. Usually, in the first 3 Five Nights at Freddy's games, audio is not really that important. But in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, the audio is the game. I mean, really, there is no other way for you to play the game rather than to listen. The problem with this is that the noise that you have to listen for is breathing, which is only inches higher than the ambience of the game. And this makes absolutely all sounds appear more intense. And not only that, whenever you generally do get jump scared, the effect of it is much stronger. And that is why Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is so unique. It doesn't rely only on its jump scares to make you generally terrified and sweaty. It relies on the gameplay itself, which of course other Five Nights at Freddy's games have also done, but they're absolutely non-comparable to Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Now here's the truly crucial part that makes the game as scary as it can be: ambience. Throughout the whole game, you are able to hear random deep swelling noises spanning throughout each single ear, which later on are joined in with random music box chimes playing on top. And note that this specific audio combo is constantly playing throughout the game until your happy moment of reaching 6 AM and surviving the night, or your inevitable death. One way that Scott made FNAF 4 a step up is adding in additional ambience cues, one of which being a dog barking outside, a distorted radio playing in the background, or an old anti-clock banging Westminster chimes throughout the whole building. And as all of these clips sound creepy enough alone, when they are mixed in with the whole ambience, the atmosphere of the game goes to another level. This, although doesn't only make the game scary, but also mask important audio cues, giving you the chance to make a mistake. Another thing that can be quite clearly had in the ambience of the game is the false audio cues for footsteps and other random sounds. The main point is that Five Nights at Freddy's 4 has mastered audio incredibly well, to the point where the audio itself makes you feel terrified, which not a lot of horror games are capable of doing. The reason why Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is so terrifying is because the game is focusing on psychologically scaring you. This means getting you to get into your own head and making a simple task such as shining a flashlight seem completely terrifying. Because at the end of the day, you don't know if there's going to be someone to greet you. Now, let's take a bit of a step back from audio and instead talk about the visual side of the game. It is undeniable that the animatronics that are in this game are absolutely terrifying. And it shouldn't come off as a surprise that the jump scares themselves are absolutely terrifying as well. But before we jump into the jump scares themselves, I want to quickly talk about how the animatronics scare you without even jump scaring you. Since in Five Nights at Freddy's 4 there are no cameras for you to watch, you might think that there can't be any cheap jump scares, such as seeing Bonnie in the background of the facility in the first part of the game. But despite the lack of cameras, the game is still able to give you a little spook. Whether that would be Foxy giving his hook some fresh air or Foxy himself coming out for a peek. Another interesting way that the game gives you a little uneasy feeling is when you go and take a small little peek throughout one of the two corridors and see either Bonnie or Chica jump back behind the wall into hiding. It's things like these that might not seem scary to be seen instantly, but the fact that you see them either rarely or much later in the game after having witnessed nothing makes it so much more terrifying. But FNAF 4 doesn't only scare you in the base game itself, but in small minigames too. After each single night passes, you are able to play two short little minigames. One of them being the main end of night minigames, and the second one being simply called Fun with Plush Trap. The goal of the game is to flash your flashlight and stop Plush Trap on the X mark. Doing so would get you 2 hours ahead of the next night, and failing to do so will result in a quick jump scare. But just take a close look at how terrifying this minigame can actually be. It is absolutely terrifying. Now, let's stop fooling around and dive into the jump scares themselves. The thing that makes these jump scares so terrifying and unique is that they're incredibly unpredictable, especially in a game like FNAF 4. And the greatest thing about them is that even after your first playthrough, they are still incredibly terrifying. And the reason for that is because the FNAF franchise isn't based on scripted events, but instead are based on specific mechanics. If a player fails to do one certain mechanic, then he faces the consequences of getting jump scared. And in the end, this makes everything feel way more terrifying, knowing that absolutely everything is based off of your actions. Which makes you feel incredibly tense throughout the whole gameplay, thus making the jump scares work perfectly in multiple playthroughs. One jump scare that I do want to talk about though, is the nightmare jump scare. This jump scare is perhaps one of the most scariest to me from the whole FNAF franchise. Mainly being that it's not something that just jumps out at you, but instead, it's just confusing. But that is why this jump scare is so terrifying. When you are playing the game itself, the tension keeps on rising until your victory or your death. But after that happens, it quickly gets released. With this jump scare though, it builds up tension instead of releasing it. Instead of giving you a short jump scare, the game gives you an incredibly unsettling image with an incredibly unsettling drone noise, which you can generally process because of its long duration. And after it ends, the game resets. This provides incredible confusion onto the player because of its difference from the rest of the jump scares, which ultimately turns into creepiness and tension. And that is why Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is terrifying.